Welcome back to another episode of My Damn Opinion. Today's episode is part 2 of my Marvel Cinematic Universe Villains series. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave a link in the description. We covered Phase 1 in part 1, so now we're going to cover Phase 2. I will leave timecodes in the description if you only care about certain Phase 2 movies, and if you haven't already, don't forget to click that sub button and please leave a like. Like Phase 1 kicked off with Iron Man, Phase 2 starts with Iron Man again. Would have been better if it were Iron Man 2 to go along with Phase 2, but whatever. Iron Man 3, everyone. This is a movie I could make an entire video on, and might just do that in the future. But for now, I'm going to restrain myself and just stick strictly to the film's villains. Iron Man 3 has quite a few antagonists, but it really only has one true villain. But we'll talk about the other ones first. Eric Savin and Ellen Brandt, two of the extremist soldiers working for AIM. Eric Savin's character is a colossal douchebag. He chews gum like a douchebag. His entire character can be summed up in one word: douchebag. So yeah, that's his character. Ellen Brandt is just an obstacle for Tony, and that's her entire character. Maya Hansen, played by Rebecca Hall, can be removed from the film and nothing would really change. I'm pretty sure her character's story was reduced and or changed due to Ike Perlmutter and his misogyny. And if I'm wrong and it's not Ike Perlmutter, oops. Okay, so now that we got the useless characters out of the way, let's dive into the two big bads of the film: the Mandarin and Aldrich Killian. The Mandarin, aka Trevor Slattery, is performed by Sir Ben Kingsley. Robert Downey Jr. said on his final day of filming he was given a standing ovation for his performance. And you know what? His performance is stellar. During the first two acts, the Mandarin is genuinely terrifying. I couldn't imagine those videos broadcasting in real life and not being terrified of this guy. Shane Black does a great job of instilling fear into the audience in the characters of the Mandarin. He is legitimately frightening.
And you'll never see me coming.
Then we get the twist. Regardless of how I feel about the twist, wasted opportunity for the character. The reveal, wasted opportunity for the character. It definitely subverts expectations, wasted opportunity for the character. And the performance of Trevor is fucking brilliant, no matter how I feel about it. Wasted opportunity for the character. I just wish we got an actual showdown between Iron Man and his comic book arch nemesis, the Mandarin, and now it's too late. Like I said though, the performance for both characters are just done so well by Ben Kingsley. The next tragedy, villain of the film, and the main antagonist: handsome billionaire playboy Tony Stark wannabe Justin Nod Hammer Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, who plays some pretty great villains. In Lawless, you just hate the slimeball he is in that film. The character starts off as a stereotypical cliche nerd who transforms into Mr. Not an Ugly Duckling by the handsome goose guy. Okay, so the plot with the War Machine armor being upgraded by AIM is literally the exact same plot as Iron Man 2 and Hammer turning the Mark II into War Machine. Killian's motivation is very weak. The hot popular girl stood him up, so now he's evil. He's just so bland and one-dimensional. He really lacks any redeeming qualities. As the audience, you can't really relate to him, you don't sympathize with him, you don't even really understand where he's coming from. If you're not going to humanize the villain in any way, at least allow the audience to question whether he is right or wrong. Even his goal to just control the war on terror. It's just like, why? Like, you just created superpowers and you still only care about money. He claims to be the real Mandarin, but there's so much backpedaling going on with that later on. First, there's the short film, All Hail the King, revealing there's a real Mandarin. And then there's the upcoming Shang-Chi film, where we are going to meet the real Mandarin. And besides the obvious whitewashing of the character, Killian being the real Mandarin and orchestrating everything from behind the scenes could have been great if it were executed properly. But instead, it's just dumb dragon tattoos and a cheesy line that just, "Oh, I am the Mandarin!" Like, oh, stupid. We just get so downgraded in quality of villains after having Loki come back as a villain in the Avengers. Severely disappointing. Side note, and I don't think this video is the place to get into this, but the Extremis powers make literally zero sense. No, never mind. I am going to get into it. Sometimes you can breathe fire, but then you can never ever do it again. You can get shot in the head with a repulsor blast and regenerate from it, but a blast through the chest kills you. You can be blown up once and regenerate, but twice and you die? Like, what the fuck? Establish your rules about your powers and obey them. Anyways, I'm tired of talking about this. Just moving on. Thor: The Dark World. Okay, first of all, I haven't watched this movie in forever, and while I do think people exaggerate how bad this movie is, it is extremely boring and not that great, and it does deserve to be classified as one of the worst MCU movies. So the two antagonists of this film are both Dark Elves. The leader of the Dark Elves, Malekith, and his right hand, Algrim. Starting with Algrim, the last cursed, played by Adewale Akinoye Agabaji. I really hope I pronounced that properly, because that's a hard name to pronounce. His character is literally there to be the muscle for Malekith. Once he takes some drugs to transform from Algrim to Curse, he becomes this brutish creature who simultaneously looks super cool and frightening, and his transformation scene is nightmarish to go through, but it is very effective once he goes through this metamorphosis. Like Savin from Iron Man 3, his character can be summed up rather briskly. Strong man. The main antagonist of the film, played by Christopher Eccleston, is Malekith the Dark Elf. Like Hugo Weaving, he also hated his role. I guess we'll start with positive stuff, if you can even call it that. His character is extremely ambitious, with plans to bring the universe to total darkness, an even worse fate for the universe than Thanos' plan. This guy does not give a shit about who has to die as long as his plans come to fruition. He will sacrifice his own people, and he even does so in the opening bit of the movie so he can make an escape. He's not much of a fighter, he's a dick. He does kill Thor's mom, yeah. He's evil for the sake of being evil. We know what his goal is, but we never get any real motivation behind why he wants to achieve it. There's no relating to this character at all. We get no information on this character other than he's evil, he has an evil plan, he's gonna do evil things. He's a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He barely has any screen time to develop as a character, but even so, what little time he does have does nothing for his character growth. The character is just dark and brooding when he should be this ecstatic, whimsical character like he was in Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Also, nothing with the ether in Malekith really makes any sense. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. The Dark Elves ship has this really cool alien-inspired aesthetic though, so points for that. It was hard getting through this movie. It took me 2 days. My god, it was so boring. Next. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This movie has a ton of villains in it, and I will touch on all of them. Most of them only briefly. The overall villains in the film are once again Hydra, under the command of Alexander Pierce, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about Batroc first. There isn't much to say about this character. He is what he is. A D-list villain at best in the comics. The Russo brothers found a way to take this silly character and make him sort of cool. He's in the movie just to be an adversary for Cap, and to help showcase how well trained Cap has become. The character serves his purpose and nothing more. We have the strike team under command of Brock Rumlow. They're mostly just a faceless army of Hydra goons with that one guy from Batman vs. Superman mixed in. Not much to say. Senator Stearns from Iron Man 2 is back for a small cameo role. This movie actually redefines his character in Iron Man 2 by revealing him to be an agent of Hydra. It adds this nice new layer to his desire to acquire the Iron Man armor. Jasper Sitwell returns from Thor, and I think he briefly appears in the Avengers. I don't really remember. He's not much of a villain, but he's another secret Hydra agent, adding this level of distrust to S.H.I.E.L.D. as a whole. Whew! We're finally starting to get somewhere. Brock Rumlow, played by Frank Grillo. This is a sort of origin precursor to him becoming Crossbones, which I love getting setups like this that don't detract from the main antagonists. The dude would have made an excellent Punisher. His character is an aggressive asshole, which is his defining feature, and there isn't much more to him than that. He's a bad dude, and he's fine with that. Okay, so in the previous video, I said I had more to say about Arnim Zola. So now that we're on this movie, here's what I have to say. This movie has redefined him as a full Hydra advocate, basically being the new face of Hydra after the demise of Red Skull. He started the infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D. and created the Winter Soldier. This man is the ultimate conspiracy theory. I find this character is extremely contradicting to his character in Cap 1. He was a follower out of fear, not true beliefs. So not only do I feel they contradict his previous depiction, the man is self-absorbed by his own intellect, preserving his mind, to then just kill himself because YOLO. I mean, it's a cool scene, and it's a fine take on Zola without making him silly. The Winter Soldier, played by Sebastian Stan. This character is so cool, not just in design, but execution. He is an advanced tactical fighter. He knows how to outmaneuver his foes. When he catches Cap's shield, oh man. And that knife play he does? So friggin' cool. This character is just badass. He's ruthless, relentless, and he's a tortured soul with fragments of his past life. He's tragic and we feel for him. We know this character, and witnessing this dark path forced upon him affects you. As much as I love this character and think Sebastian does a great job of portraying the character, I don't think him and Chris Evans ever get enough screen time together. I wish we saw more of their friendship than we get throughout the entire series, but as Trump would say, it is what it is. Alexander Pierce, played by the legendary Robert Redford. This character is a great antagonist. He is very authoritative, he sticks to his guns on his beliefs, he's extremely charismatic and manipulative, he's controlling, and just has this charm that he radiates that you both like and respect the guy even though you shouldn't. On the flip side, he's also very cold-blooded, killing his housekeeper because she walked in on the Winter Soldier in his kitchen. He has zero hesitation when it comes to killing others. Much like the former leader of Hydra, the Red Skull, Pierce is very well-mannered. He takes no shit and fully stands behind his beliefs. He has this gravitas to him where you might even start to think he's right. I think he hits most of the valuable points of what makes a good villain. The only real negative thing I will say about Pierce is what a wasted opportunity to pull the Del Rusk storyline and have him secretly be the Red Skull. I waited for that plot twist the entire movie to be let down when it didn't happen. He was the perfect character for that twist, and they didn't do it. Also, I love the idea of Hydra being a parasite that grows within S.H.I.E.L.D., but also their plot with Project Insight is the same as Red Skull's plan, but a little more sophisticated. Anyway, here's Conway Twitty.
There's no need in going.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, so this movie has one main bad guy, a faceless army, two villain sidekicks, a cameo appearance, and some tough pirate guys. You know, Yondu and the gang. They aren't villains, though. So, let's just... yes, much better. Faceless army equals the Sakarans. Okay, done. The two villain sidekicks, Nebula and Korath. Let's talk about Korath first. Played by Jamon Hunsu. Okay, there's so many actors with really difficult to pronounce names. Oh my god. There isn't really much to say, really. Oh my god, did I say really twice? Fuck. He's one of Ronan's sidekicks, an enforcer for him. He has a no-nonsense personality. We don't get much of a story behind his character, no explanation as to why he follows Ronan. He gets in the way of the Guardians, but they kinda just go right through him and he dies. The next sidekick is Nebula, played by Karen Gillan, who does a fantastic job in her performance. Nebula is also one of Ronan's sidekicks and enforcers. We get a little more depth to her than Korath, but in this movie, not much character development compared to later films. We know she's bitter and jealous of Gamora and the love Thanos has for her. You can't reason with her because her mind is already made up. She wants her father's approval, but at the same time, she resents him and has no problem teaming up with Ronan if it means Thanos' demise. She's a bad bitch, and I hope that doesn't come off as corny as it sounds. Thanos. Don't really want to get into him right now. He's got a lot coming up. I will say this, however. He has some really cool dialogue.
And I will bathe the starways in your blood.
Now, onto the main course. Ronan the Accuser. Played by Lee Pace, or Pace, depending on how you want to pronounce that, I guess. He does a great job of being this menacing, fear-mongering villain. Just hearing his name strikes fear into the Xandarians. Ronan is a Kree fanatic. He's a true believer in his culture and believes it to be the culture. A Kree purist wanting to wipe out an entire planet to preserve his culture. He's a radical terrorist. He feels Xandar's culture is a disease and will stop at nothing to eradicate it. I really feel his character and motivations are a great allegory for racism, fascism, and white supremacy. His goals are very Nazi-like, and he is wearing all black, just saying. He's murderous, cruel, just kind of pure evil. He rules with an iron fist and is just ruthless. Man, I need some new adjectives. Oh, hold on a second. Malevolent, malicious, callous. Callous, yeah, there, I can use other words. Ronan also has no respect for others, even disrespecting Thanos to his face twice. He has a cool guy demeanor, and his emotions are just genuine. And my favorite moment, probably in the movie, and the best moment to showcase his genuine emotions, is when he gets so concerned about Star-Lord and his dance-off.
What are you doing?
So good. Do they stay true to his character in the comics? No, I don't think so, but it works for the movie. He's got a one-dimensional personality, but we at least know his aspirations and the motivation behind them, even if we can't relate to them and they're very thin at most. Wow, I actually have a lot more to say about Ronan than I thought it would. Onward! And no, not the Pixar film. Avengers: Age of Ultron. The next big bad that the Avengers face on screen is Justin Hammer. No, wait. There's no white evil businessmen in this movie except Tony Stark. Boom! Got him. Ultron is the main antagonist of the film, as the title would suggest. But of course, like all previous films we've talked about, and by we I mean me, let's do the other guys first. No, not these guys. Starting with Hydra. Holy shit, these guys are around a lot. And will probably be around forever, except for pretty much every movie after this, excluding Ant-Man. We have Dr. List, but you can watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2 and or 3 if you want more info on that guy. Baron Strucker, the new head of Hydra. Oh boy. I say this a lot, and it's starting to become my catchphrase, I guess, but this guy is a wasted fucking opportunity war character. He starts off as the arrogant, strong-headed leader of Hydra to becoming a coward and immediately wanting to give himself up for a later sentence. He's a lame loser that gets wheatened and dies off screen. And by wheatened, I mean terrible jokes. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, Pietro and Wanda, because Disney didn't own Fox yet. They start off as villains, and rightly so. Pietro is an arrogant jerk who is motivated by revenge and his hatred for Stark. We get the background delivered to us, which is nice. Wanda is basically the same, except she's not an arrogant jerk. They give her a bit of a horror aesthetic that goes away as fast as it appeared. Then some dilly-dallying later, and they're good guys. Claw. Man, I love Andy Serkis, and he plays this character so well. This guy is evil, we learn that right away. We're given just enough background information to understand that he's a black market arms dealer. He stole vibranium from Wakanda. He's fearless and confident and is motivated by money. Who would have thunk it? What a great way to establish a villain and build him up for another appearance. Like Rumlow. Man, I can't wait for both of these characters to return. Maybe even becoming recurring characters across multiple films. Okay, finally, Mr. Metalman himself, and I'm not talking about the Mega Man 2 boss, Ultron, brought to life by James Spader. James Spader does an incredible performance of this character. He starts off as this terrifying puppet-like creature that comes to an end quick. He has this calm, soothing voice that is also cold, stoic, and frightening all at the same time. He knows how to take control of the room. He's very eerie early on, but loses that eeriness pretty fast. He develops into full-on Ultron by his second scene. There was no real growth for the character, which is upsetting. Being the love child of Tony and Bruce, the snarkiness and sarcastic behavior in the character actually makes a lot of sense in the world of the MCU, even if it's not comic accurate at all. They really want to humanize the character rather than have the cold and calculated murder bot from the comics and shows, which is where the character suffers. He's basically a rebellious child and throws temper tantrums through the film. This bot has daddy issues for all you chads out there looking for an easy hookup. His need to kill the Avengers just comes out of nowhere. There's no real build-up or reason behind it. There should have been a natural transition to that thought. After surfing the internet for the first 30 seconds of his life, he draws a conclusion that the Avengers are the problem. And I think that's where they screw up his development and character. He should have wanted to work with the Avengers and naturally progress to the thought of the Avengers are not a part of the solution, but are a part of the problem. It really would have elevated his motivation for an extinction level event. For a character that is supposed to be emotionless, this version lets his emotions get in the way. He truly cares for Wanda and Pietro. As much as he wants to wipe out all life on the planet, which again kind of comes out of nowhere, he still wants company keeping Nat alive. And as much as he thinks humans are inferior, he's very human himself. Even he doesn't want to be alone at the end of the world. The performance is fantastic even if the character itself isn't. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the conclusion to Phase 2, Ant-Man. This one should be short and sweet. There's only one true villain of this movie, and you'll never guess his occupation. Evil, bald, white businessman. There's that douchebag Hydra guy, but fuck him, I'm not wasting my breath on him. Darren Cross, aka Yellow Jacket, played by Corey Stoll. Overall, he's actually better than I remember as a villain. The performance is done well. Corey plays a cocky, arrogant, egomaniacal genius businessman so well. He knows how to command a room full of people. He has such a fragile ego that as soon as his genius is questioned, he literally evaporates a dude. He's so self-centered, thinking he's this great gift to the world. He lacks remorse and is just an asshole, total sociopath. His villainy is the result of a throwaway line about the chemical imbalance created from the Pym particles when you use them without protection. No matter how full of himself he is, he still seeks his mentor's approval. That Yellow Jacket suit is friggin' sweet. It's such cool design. And I love a villain who suits up instead of just being a villain already. He's motivated by his need to succeed more than Hank. And money. Money is a big one too. So his motivation is partially relatable, but his characteristics make it near damn impossible to even side with him and his values. It's unfortunate he could have been one of the greats. I do think he might have been a better version of Obadiah. And with that, we come to the end of Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Overall, I think we get a 50-50 on lackluster villains and good villains. Most of the villains in Phase 2 are very one-dimensional while having depth, which is kind of an oxymoron, but we get some great performances and some shitty ones. The villains are all pretty much just evil for the sake of being evil, but some of them just get enough info and subtle nuances in their performances to make them great. So, who is the best villain of Phase 2? I would love for Justin Hammer to be the answer. Can't get enough of that guy dancing, but I gotta give it to Alexander Pierce. We see both a good side and the evil side of the character, and he's able to almost convince you that he might just be right. So I think those, mixed with other things I talked about previously, would be the main reasons why he comes out on top. Here is my ranking of the Phase 2 villains. In spot number 1, we have Alexander Pierce, as stated earlier, as being the best villain. In spot number 2, we have Ronan. Ronan deserves spot number 2 because out of pretty much all of the MCU Phase 2 villains, we clearly understand his motivation and his goals, even if we can't really relate to them. And he's just this great simile or allegory, whatever word you want to use, for, racism and fascism, and I think that's great. Spot number 3 goes to Ultron, mostly because of the performance and the fact that he was able to fracture the Avengers, even if only briefly, and cause inner conflict, and for that he accomplishes more than most of the villains on this list. Number 4 goes to the Winter Soldier, because he's a great adversary for Captain America. He has backstory to him. It's a character we already know, and you almost feel sympathy for him, something that you don't get with most of the villains. Spot number 5 goes to Yellow Jacket. Corey Stoll's performance as Yellow Jacket is great. We do get a little bit of his motivation and, his aspirations and his goals, even if they're not that relatable and they're mostly driven by money. But, like I said before, I think he's a better version of Obadiah. Number 6 goes to Claw because I just really like Andy Serkis, and the small amount of time he's on screen I think is more captivating than a lot of the other characters in performances. Number 7 goes to Nebula. I would rank her higher if this was like the later films, but I find you don't get enough of her to consider her a great villain in her first appearance. So I think ranking her any higher than that would be unfair to the other villains, and ranking her lower would be unfair to her. Number 8 goes to our named Zola, because without Zola, the infiltration of Hydra into S.H.I.E.L.D. would never have succeeded, and Project Insight would have been nothing. So the dude needs to be on this list, and that's pretty much it. Number 9 and number 10 go to Killian and Malekith, respectively. I just really don't give a shit about these characters. There's nothing interesting about them. They're boring. Malekith is worse than Killian, which is why he's number 10. And spot number 11 goes to every other villain mentioned in this video. Most of them are not big bads. They're not the main antagonists of the film. They're side villains, secondary antagonists, and they're just whatever, you know. They kind of just all get clustered into one ranking because no one really cares. And with that, we come to the conclusion of my Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe villain series. Let me know in the comments who you think is the best villain of Phase 2 and whether or not you agree with my rankings. And if you haven't already, click that sub button for more videos and stay tuned for part 3. That one will take a lot longer than this one. I have a bunch of movies I have to rewatch. In the meantime, you can look forward to some other videos that I have in the works. So yeah, hit the sub button for those videos if you're interested. Please leave a like as well. That would be great. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.